Great to see everyone. Really nice to have a whole load of you back. To be fair, we are a bit down on numbers this week, and I'm not too surprised. I think with hi Nada, nice to see you. I'm not too surprised. Obviously, the industry is starting to open up now, and I think a lot of people are having to get back into the world of work, which is great. There's a lot going on at the moment. I mean, I've unfortunately heard quite a lot about hotels restructuring already and talking about redundancies or people are interviewing for their jobs. And I mean, I think that's a bit early at the moment. I appreciate the market's tough and occupancies are low in a huge amount of places, but I do think the hotels ideally want to give it a bit of time to see how the market's going to come back before just making decisions. I do worry slightly the industry, if we're not careful, is going to cut too deep and then need to actually recruit people at a later date, which just seems a slightly odd way of doing things. But yeah, so things are pretty tough. So I'm not too surprised we're a bit down on numbers, but I still think this will be a really important webinar today. So today's event is about meeting techniques and communication, and how to have impact in meetings. Interestingly, I think particularly at the moment with the COVID-19 situation, the RMS systems aren't going to have the sort of data available to them in line with this situation. They're not going to have previous trends, and previous data to look at to try and be able to give recommendations on pricing and stuff. And I think what's going to happen is as a revenue manager in this sector at the moment, no matter what industry you're in, the systems aren't really going to help you too much, and it's going to come down to the revenue manager's knowledge. It's going to come down to your opinion. It's going to come down to educated guesswork, predicting, hopefully accurate forecasting to try and put the right pricing and optimize the hotel's revenue. I think what's going to happen as a result of that is there's going to be quite a few meetings. There's going to be either Zoom calls, maybe face-to-face if some of the hotels have got people in now. So I think the meetings are going to become more and more important, and revenue managers actually are going to have a more important seat at that table, I think, over the next 6 to 9 months. And I think getting meetings right and having impact and we'll come on to sort of earning respect in that meeting and things is going to be really important, and that's what today's about. I think also what I'd say is as more and more meetings happen, people get a bit bored with them. So getting respect and running meetings properly is getting harder, and we'll cover some of that as well as we go through. So as you know, as I always like to do, we'll do a couple of polls to start with. I can't help myself. So first one is, how often are you or were you having meetings? And I've put each week, but actually the answers aren't necessarily each week. So how often are you having meetings, or were you having meetings? Once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week, 3 a week, every day, or more than 1 a day? That's quite interesting. Okay, so give that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and that. Right, share the results. So pretty spread, actually, which is quite interesting. So more than once a month, so once every couple of weeks, once a week, 3 a week is the main one, but so once a week, 3 a week, every day. So it's quite spread as to whether it's once a week or every day, actually. That's interesting. Now that will it'd be interesting if we were able to look at the demographic of what we've got here, the positions people are in and the industries people are in, because that might affect that figure quite a lot. I think we're going to find, as I mentioned, the amount of meetings goes up. And also what I would say is as you progress in your career, we've mentioned, actually, haven't we, in previous webinars, we've mentioned things like how AI is going to kick in and there'll be less analysis done by the revenue managers. What's going to end up happening, therefore, is actually there's probably going to be more meetings to discuss strategies, to discuss and for revenue managers to therefore use what the AI and things is telling them to maximize, the revenue better, and to try and create demand working with marketing to target customers before they even know what they need. And there'll be meetings to be able to have those conversations. So I think you're going to find the amount of meetings you have as you go up the ladder, it becomes less about analysis and hands-on work and more about the liaison and communication, both internally, but also with perhaps OTAs, with suppliers, with all sorts of other people. So I think you'll find the amount of meetings you have will increase as you get more senior. So next one is more about you guys individually, personally. How confident would you say you are in a meeting? Very, I can lead a meeting, no problem. Fairly confident, I can talk about my part fine. I get through it. I'm nervous and can do better. Don't feel I do a great job. I don't say much. I just support someone else. Okay, it's pretty good. Give that a few more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. We've had more people do that one than the last one for some reason. Right. So, okay, good. So so I can lead a meeting, no problem. That's good. And actually, as revenue managers, that is a skill that I think in reality you should be learning and developing all the time. And actually, a good revenue manager wants to be, in that situation. They want to be confident. They want to be able to lead a meeting. The aim of today is to try and help, I guess, think about maybe bits that arguably you could do a bit better, and also to help those people that are, I guess, in the other areas. So people that feel they get through a meeting, they're a bit nervous, they could do a bit better. They can talk about their bit fine, but actually sometimes it's more than that. And we might have perhaps a couple of revenue analysts on here as well who maybe support other people in the business and don't say much meetings. So this then is will be hopefully some interesting detail for them to think about. So it's good. I'm glad we've got some confident people. I hope there will still be some things I can add value on this for you. So to start, what we're going to do, I'm going to split this into a couple of different parts. The first part being if you're actually running the meeting. So this might be if you're maybe slightly more senior. Could be that actually what's happening is someone has said to you now in this market, actually, you're the revenue manager. We want to understand what it is that's going on. And they've asked you to run and organize a meeting. So I'm going to give you some points here on how to organize the meeting, how to go about that. We're then afterwards going to look at some points as if you're attending a meeting. And obviously, when you're attending a meeting, that could be you organizing it, or could you just be attending as a guest? So this running a meeting list is not exhaustive. Some of it will come, some other things will come up in the next section. So when you're running a meeting, I would say a couple of things. The setup's really important. And this is setting it up in plenty of time. So don't leave it to the last minute. Make sure you give people time to put it in their diary to not clash with other things. What you don't want to happen is if you set it up last minute and they're squeezing it in, then you don't, they start to worry about having too many meetings and actually they concentrate less in your meeting because they're thinking about other things they've got going on. Also, think about the setup of the room. So think about, sometimes you've only got one room you can have the meeting in and you can't do anything about it. But then it's about, where are you going to sit? Make sure you give yourself a position, if you're running the meeting, that allows you to see everybody, allows you to be fairly central. Those things actually have more importance than you realize once you're in the meeting. Don't sit in the far corner. Either sit at the end of the table or sit in the middle of the length of the table. Invite the right people. So again, if you invite them with plenty of time, but don't invite everybody. People have too many meetings. One of the biggest criticisms of people in sort of corporate business nowadays is they have too many meetings. So don't invite people if they are only going to be involved for 1 minute of the meeting. If you've got one question you need to ask them, get them in at the start and allow them to leave, or even ask them before the meeting, get the information you need and take that then into the meeting yourself. You don't need everybody there if they're not really going to participate. set the agenda. So this is two things. This is write the agenda for the meeting before the meeting. And when you set up the date and time and put it in people's calendars, and send a calendar invite, attach the agenda into that invite. Don't send them separately. Don't send the agenda on email, although you could do that as well. But make sure the agenda is in the calendar invite, because people can then find it. There's no excuses. If you're running the meeting, you have an expectation of everybody that they come prepared. And preparation is key for all this, and it's and preparation is key for you, as we'll see as we go on. But you, if you're running a meeting, you have an expectation that people come prepared, that they have the right information, but they need to know what information they need before they come in. So you've got to set that agenda up front. I think the other thing I would say here is when you then start the meeting, when everybody's in, make sure that you go through the agenda at the start of the meeting. So as everyone sat down, introduce themselves, make sure you then go through the agenda and set the expectation of what is needed from everybody and what order you're going to go through. Then it gets people bought in at the beginning. People understand the process they're going to go through, and you'll find that people are less distracted and less confused by the process. And then timing. Timing is arguably one of the most important things. So you obviously know the time the meeting's going to be. Get there early. Be there before everyone else, and make sure you are then greeting people as they come in, because what you then do is you set your level of authorization, of authority for the meeting. You're there welcoming everybody as they turn up. And that's really important, because people then immediately see you as the person that is at the forefront of, psychologically, you're at the forefront of that, of all the conversations. So start on time. I think when you look at these webinars, we've done 10 of them now, unbelievably. I fortunately have always been here early. I've always been here on time. We might have started a minute past 2 or past 12 today, 2 minutes past, but that's only to allow for maybe 1 or 2 late stragglers. And with Zoom calls, it's probably more likely people might be late than if you're doing face-to-face meetings. But we've always been ready to start on time. Now, and starting on time is more important than finishing on time, because it might be, if you've got a lot to talk about, that you'll finish late. If you finish late, that's not a problem, as long as you're aware that some people might have to leave to go to other meetings if their day's very busy. Now, what I would say as a result of that is, if your expectation is people might have to go, don't leave important information right to the end. Work your way through the agenda on time, within whatever time scale you've set, and then have questions or other issues that you might be talking about which overrun, because that way it's what you needed to cover in the meeting has been covered, and if people have to leave, they're not missing anything important. So timing is key. Right, so that's, I'd say, if you're running the meeting, there are certain rules you've got to adhere to. But if you're attending a meeting, and this might be a meeting you've organised, but also it might just be a meeting that you've been invited to and that you're attending. So again, there are some simple rules to this. Now, if you haven't organised the meeting, what you want to do is, so for instance, if you're meeting the senior management team in a hotel and the GM's organised the meeting, what you've got to make sure is that for your part of that meeting, you've set the expectation and you've set the agenda before people go into that meeting. The habit people have, the bad habit people have, is that the GM organises it and you go in thinking, I've got this bit to talk about and that's what I'm going to deliver. But what happens is sometimes you need information from other people, or you need the marketing director you need to have a conversation with the marketing director in the meeting about a thought process, a creative idea, a promotion, whatever. What you want to do is set the agenda of what you want your section to be, your part of that meeting, before you go in. Make sure the marketing director is aware of what you're going to talk to him about, him or her. Because one, they need to prepare the information they need to have. Secondly, they don't want to be put on the spot. And thirdly, your part of the meeting will be much more effective if everybody you need present is aware of what is expected of them. So before the meeting, when the agenda comes out from your general manager, email everybody and tell them what you need from them for your part of the meeting. Right, so this is an important part. Understand the needs of the people there. I said earlier, when you're organizing the meeting, invite the people you need to be there. Invite the important people, not everybody. Now, that might not be the case in every meeting, and you might be invited to a meeting where you've got a section to talk about, and there are people there that aren't important to you and to what you need to talk about. But so what you've got to do is you have to target your conversation and think to yourself, okay, who is it in this meeting that needs to know what I've got to talk about, and what is it they want to know? What value can I add to them? You will lose their attention if you're not adding value in line with what they want to hear. So it's about preparing before the meeting and thinking, okay, what is it they want from me? Make sure that you've got the information you need. Make sure that you've got illustrations. Make sure you understand what they want from you. And if you prepare yourself in line with who's important, then you'll deliver in that meeting as you need to. Introduction. So you might think I've gone back a bit, but the reason I've put this in the middle is the pre-meeting agenda is sending out before the meeting what you want from people. The understanding needs is thinking before the meeting, what do these people want from me and what value can I add to them? What can I show them that adds value? Whereas then the introduction is once you're in the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, this is how you introduce yourself. If it's a regular meeting with, say, the hotel senior management team or your airline route team or whatever the case may be, they'll know who you are, okay? You don't need to introduce yourself every time. However, what you can still do is when you start your section, when you're talking about your part of the meeting, you can still set the agenda on what you're going to talk about. It's still about managing the expectation of what you're going to be, what information you're going to be discussing. And actually, in line with that, be consistent. So if you have regular monthly meetings, regular weekly meetings, regular quarterly meetings with the same people, be consistent with the information you bring. Be consistent in how you deliver it. Bring the same graphs, bring the same data, because what people are then able to do, and bring the data from the months before as well, because they're then able to see how things have changed. If you're affecting ADR, if you're affecting RevPAR, if you're affecting occupancy levels, whatever the key things are, you want to show them how things have changed and developed over a period of time. And so be consistent with the information you bring, because that will allow them to actually get used to what you're showing them. So consistency is key. And be equipped. So be equipped is, as I was saying, about make sure you've thought about what value people want from you, what information do they want. Make sure you then bring what you need to the meeting. Again, it's about preparation. Make sure you've got the right illustrations, the right graphs, the right data, and make sure you've got enough copies of it for how many people in the meeting you need, because then you can pass it and hand it out. If it's Zoom, the key with Zoom is to make sure that you've got the screens open before the meeting that you need, so you can easily jump into whatever screen. So when we did the LinkedIn, the social media webinar, I had LinkedIn open and was able to go into the screens, and I checked with the audio, with you guys, with the audience, that you could see the screens that I wanted you to see. So Zoom means you've got to be a bit more organized in a different way, or send them the data over email before the meeting. So it's just about being equipped, being prepared. Preparation for all these things is critical. So I guess we now come on to the influencing part, really. How do we influence in a meeting? Now, interestingly, influencing in meetings is becoming harder. People are having more meetings, as I've said. Therefore, there is a temptation for people to get a bit, they zone out now in meetings because they have too many of them. The participation in meetings decreases because they've got a bit bored with them, and actually they retain less information often because they're in too many meetings. So it's harder to have that influence. I think also the rise of Zoom, and with COVID-19, we're doing more meetings over screens. I think the problem with that is it's just not the same as being in the room. People can turn a video off. You know, you guys could all be sitting there twiddling your thumbs for all I know. But in a Zoom call, you know, people can do other things. They can get distracted. So it is harder to get their opinion, and being memorable is now much more important, and really becomes something you've got to think about, how you deliver the information you need to deliver. So it's all about the communication. That's, you know, content and communication. They're the two things for influencing. So earn respect. You've got to earn respect. You can't just get respect. It doesn't just fall into place. You have to earn respect with how you're delivering the information that you're talking about, preparing properly for every meeting, understanding the order in which you're talking about information, understanding how you're going to talk about it, what to emphasize, what to talk about a bit quicker, what to spend a bit more time on, practice it beforehand. You know, I probably do these webinars 3 times before I actually deliver them to you to make sure I'm on time and I understand what information I'm talking about. I mentioned earlier what your attendees want. So think about what your people want from the meeting. What topics do they want? And what do they want to hear about? That you will earn respect, and we'll come on in a minute to another point actually, which is focus. Get to the point, and talk about the information they want to hear. Don't go off at a tangent. And the last thing I say about earning respect, this is what I was saying earlier about one of the points I put in that how confident are you was, I don't say a lot, I support someone else in the meeting, okay? What the best way to earn respect in a meeting, and this is similar to LinkedIn and social media, is contribute. And it's not contribute for contribute's sake. It's not say something when you don't really know the answer to it, because you just run the risk of actually probably losing respect rather than earning it. But when you're going into a meeting, you should prepare and understand the data and the information you're there to talk about. If you don't, then basically you're blagging it and you're running the risk of making a fool of yourself. So you will understand and you'll know the data that you're talking about. And therefore, when it comes to the meeting, you need to have an opinion. You need to be able to contribute. When other people are saying things, you need to be able to contribute. And people will earn respect for you through the contributions that you give, and building your knowledge. And, you know, even if it's topics you're unsure about, through LinkedIn, through mentors, through groups and things we've discussed already, you can build knowledge of things you don't necessarily know a lot about. And a couple of days before the meeting, if you know what the agenda is, ask people in groups about what the topic that's coming up, so that you've got some market knowledge. And then when you are contributing, you've either got your data that can help you with evidence, or you've got anecdotes you can talk about from the market. And those two things are what allow your contribution to be a lot more powerful and a lot more, have a lot more weight, because you've got real life examples to be able to talk about. So earning respect in a meeting takes time, but also it's through contribution. It's not just through sort of sitting and listening. Although listening is the next point, and that brings me on nicely. When people have their part in the meeting and when they have a point to make, let them speak. Don't interrupt. You've got to let them say their bit. Listening is as important a part of a meeting as anything else. You've got to allow people to get their point across. And the key to it is write notes as people are talking. Write notes about what they've said, or if you've got a question or an opinion about what they've said, write notes so you don't forget. But the key is don't interrupt, let them speak, and write notes so you don't forget what it is you want to say. Actually, on that, funnily enough, the other thing I'd say is if you've got an opinion, if you've got a contrary opinion to what they say, that's fine. There's nothing wrong being not agreeing with someone. There's a way of doing it. You know, if someone says something you don't agree with, say the marketing person says something about a promotion, if you've got the data that says something different, you've got to back your judgment, and you've got to have the confidence to think, okay, I don't think that's right. And as long as you go about that the right way, people will respect you for backing your knowledge and backing your opinion. Don't be argumentative, but you do need to having a contrary opinion to things is a positive thing. Adapt your style. So you will be in different meetings where people are very different. Some people are very formal, some people are much more relaxed. And actually, you want to try and mirror those as much as you can. Saying that, if you, so one of the first meetings I ever did on my own when I started in recruitment, this was about 20 years ago, more than that. God, that's crazy. I went to a meeting, and this was when you could smoke in companies, in offices. And I walked into this meeting, and the guy walked around behind his desk. He sat back on his chair, he put his feet up, and he lit a cigarette. And all the training I'd had up to that point was be formal, keep to a structure, talk about your agenda, that sort of thing. And it absolutely threw me. I just didn't know what to do. And now at the time, I was 21 and I smoked a bit. And I was like, do I light a cigarette to mirror what he's doing? Do I not? And I didn't. And actually not doing was exactly the right thing, because he was sort of testing whether how professional I was. But people don't do that nowadays, but it's just an example of how things can throw you. If people sit back, mirroring their body language is a positive thing to do, because subconsciously they see that as you copying them, and subconsciously that is a respectful thing. Personally, if you've noticed, I tend to keep things reasonably formal as we've done all these webinars. I think you can't go wrong if you keep things fairly formal, but also a little bit relaxed, because I think what you don't want is someone to take something you say the wrong way. If you go too relaxed, you just run the risk of somebody thinking he or she's not quite that professional. And then you run the risk. Whereas even if someone thinks you're too formal, as long as you're not crazy formal, that's not a bad thing. It's often seen as, okay, he's a bit formal, but you can then relax in the future when you know them a bit better. So I tend to urge on the formal side of everything, but still try and show my personality and be as relaxed as you can. Body language. How are we doing for time? Just to keep an eye on it. Oh God, 1:30 already, blimey. Okay, so body language, eye contact's important, obviously, it's the same in any meeting. But what I would say when you're delivering what you need to talk about is it's about eye connection as much as it's eye contact. Make sure you get people's eye connection. Make sure you really look at them when you're giving them key data. It's more than just eye contact. It's about getting them engaged with what you're talking about. And that's really important. If you notice in these webinars, I've also always sat forward. I've never sat back on my chair, because there's an engagement element. And when you're talking to people over Zoom or even in face-to-face meetings, when you're sat forward, generally you're more energetic and you're more engaging. So I'd always say when you're delivering your points in a meeting, sit forward, never sit back. And don't fidget. If you notice, I often have in these, and I haven't today, funny enough, but I often have a pen in my hand. And it's because it stops me grabbing things and holding things and moving things on my desk. And I just hold the pen, and it gives me a sense of stability. So that's a little trick if you have a habit of fidgeting. And then last thing is focus, which I've sort of said, really. This is about getting straight to the point. And I feel as though maybe I've waffled because I've gone over time. Get straight to the point, understand the people that are in the meeting and what they want to hear, tell them what they want to hear. They can always ask you other questions if they need to. Get rid of digital distractions. So in any meeting I ever go to, with any client ever, with these webinars, I never have my phone on me. I never have my phone near me. I don't have it on vibrate. I just take it out of the way. As far as I'm concerned, in meetings, it's disrespectful if you are picking up your phone, looking at it. The only time I've ever had my phone in meetings is maybe an internal meeting where I'm maybe sitting with someone one-to-one, but I'm waiting for an important call. But the one thing I will do is say to that person before the meeting starts, I'm just waiting for a really important call I've got to take. But I reckon I only do that 1 in 50 meetings. As far as I'm concerned, phones and digital distractions do not go into meetings. The challenge with Zoom calls is that people have their emails present. And I would honestly say to you, if you are delivering your part of a meeting and even your GM, if your GM or your MD or whoever starts looking at their emails as you're talking, stop talking. Just stop. And eventually they'll look up, and then you can start talking again. Or if they look up and say something, you can say, oh, I just wanted to make sure everything was all right, or just want to make sure something along the lines of, I just want to make sure, this data is important, or just want to make sure there wasn't another issue you needed to go to or something, because you are within your right to have the respect about the subject you're talking about. And you don't have to be rude, but you do want to make sure, people respect what you're talking about. So the other thing I'd say is training. Look, get training on presentation, get training on running meetings. There's loads of training about. Your company should be willing to get you, give you training on it. It is really important. I think that people are doing training over Zoom now. And I think, revenue management, as you get more senior, you're going to do more meetings, and your gravitas, your presentation, and your delivery of those is going to have to be better and better the higher up the chain you go. So I would definitely recommend you to get training on presentation skills and meetings, because I honestly think it's one of the most important. And the final thing really is content. Preparation for meetings and content are probably the two most important things. Know what people in the meeting want and give them the right content, and make sure you know the content. Spend time beforehand knowing what it is you're talking about. Prepare for questions about it. Think to yourself, what are these people going to ask me about this information? What other things are they going to want to know? And you've got to try and preempt that, because actually then you'll be seen as knowledgeable, as confident, and you'll go into the meeting actually more confident. I've mentioned give your opinion if it's contrary to what other people think, because you should have, your data should be able to back up give you evidence of that. And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. If you're shouted down, as it were, if your opinion is shown to be wrong, or they make a different decision, there's nothing wrong with that. No one's always right, but having an opinion gains you respect. And understand that if they've gone with a different decision, understand why they have. And then you can learn from that down the line in terms of, particularly if it's a consistent, regular meeting, you can understand why they went with it, and that can help you for decisions further down the line. And imposter syndrome, I've mentioned in a previous webinar. We all have confidence crises in terms of thinking, am I qualified enough to do this job? Should I be sitting in this position? I sit here, should I be delivering this webinar to you? Do I know that much about meetings more than any other one else here? I probably should have said at the beginning, I reckon I've done over 2,500 meetings with employers, and I think I've done over 3,500 meetings with people looking for work. So I've done quite a few meetings, but I think, we all suffer from that, imposter syndrome. Should I be here? But I think what happens is, as long as you prepare, and the more meetings you do, practice makes perfect. The more you do, the more your self-confidence simply overrides that imposter syndrome. But don't worry if that is how you feel. Imposter syndrome is something that everybody has, and it never goes away. I honestly, I don't think it ever goes away. But I think what happens is you back your judgment, and you back your knowledge, and you back your delivery systems, and you back the practice and the preparation. And as long as you do that, you'll be okay. So look, that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, I think, of how to try and make sure you deliver confident meetings, build respect and influence as much as you can. Now, I was going to do another webinar next week on putting a CV together and things, but I think in reality, I think a lot of people are going back to work. A lot of people have got things happening. And so what I thought I'd really quickly do is just mention it at the end of this one. We have got, and I will send the recording of this, I'll send tomorrow. Ina's just put a comment, actually. I'd always have a calculator on you. You never know when you might need it. Yeah, that's a fair point. And actually, when I said be equipped earlier, actually thinking about revenue management, you guys have got a lot of figures to deal with. You've got variances, you've got percentage changes and people might ask you those questions in the meeting. So be equipped would be with the data, but also with the calculator, yeah. But also the preparation might mean you've already thought about those questions, and you might be able to get away with not having a calculator if you've already preempted and done all the calculations and got all the figures. That you know, I think that's a risk, and I wouldn't recommend it, but it is a possibility. You've already done the preparation beforehand. But Ina's right, take a calculator. So I thought what I'd do today is when I send this recording out, I will send you a link to a blog that we've done and a video and a template about how to put a CV together, because actually I'm not sure half an hour talking about putting a CV together is that exciting. But what I thought I'd quickly show you and very quickly run through is roughly what a structure of a CV should look like. So we've only got one job on here, okay? But very simply, you do not have on the top of your CV a title saying example CV or CV. Do not put CV. People know it's a CV, so don't put CV, okay? We've just put that there so you know it's an example CV. Put your name at the top in bold, in big letters, bigger than the rest of the CV. You're the highlight. Put your address and your contact details. The amount of CVs I get with no contact details is crazy, because sometimes I just can't get hold of people. So put your address and contact details. You then want to have a personal statement that sells you as a package. It's your achievements, experiences, your competencies, your personality traits, your ambitions, what you want to be doing. It's not a list of your duties. It's not, don't write loads and loads of duties. It's an overview selling you as an overall individual. And it should be about 4 to 8 lines. So I suppose 6 lines. So sell yourself. That is the bit that makes you sound interesting. Then you want to have your education and qualifications, your grades, your schools, your universities, your qualifications, whatever the case may be. You have an additional skills section under that, which has languages if you have any, and it has the systems that you've used. Think of your RMS, your PMS, reservation systems, BIs, all sorts of things. I mean, we've gone through, you know, the different types of systems in the past. You know, the level of Excel, the sort of things on Excel you've done, pivots, macros, you know, if you've done VBA, SQL, whatever the case may be. List the systems, and I can't tell you how important that is. The amount of times that I've known people to apply to a job, and without knowing it, they've got the same systems as the job is using. And that increases your chances to such a huge degree of getting the job, I can't tell you. So put your systems on there. And then we come to the employment history. So title employment history, start with the most recent job, the current job. And you want to have the name of employer, the job title, the date. Nature of business, you don't have to put. If it's obvious, if it's a hotel or an airline, you don't have to put it. If it's something people might not know, you could put service departments or something. But then you want to have 1 or 2 lines underneath that, probably in italics, that's just explaining the business that you work for. So the size of the company, how many routes, how many seats you fill, how many rooms, how many, you know, the hotel's got, the turnover, the revenue size, that sort of thing. Give a picture to the person reading your CV on the size of the organization that you work for and what they do. And then you'll have your duties and responsibilities with bullet points. Keep the bullet points short, snappy. Don't start them with I did. I built a spreadsheet, I optimized the pricing. The bullet point should be optimized pricing, da, 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 da. Built spreadsheet to, da, da, da. Don't write paragraphs, write bullet points, and tailor the order. So if we spoke about different types of jobs that you could apply to. So consulting, systems, going up the ladder in revenue, commercial director, academia, whatever. Think about, what does that job need? What are the key duties that job's going to be doing? And what skills have I got that closest fit that? Then put those duties at the top. So for each job you send your CV to, you might be moving the bullet points around a bit. Now, if, to be fair, you're a revenue manager of a hotel and you're applying to another revenue manager of a hotel, you probably won't need to change them around much, because the key duties should be the key duties in most hotels. The only thing is if you're applying to a job where the job spec says it's, you know, implementing a new system, make sure your system stuff is high up on the bullet points, as an example. And then under the duties, and your duties should be the routine stuff you do, but have an achievements section. And then you want 4 or 5 achievements in your job that highlight really what you've done. The increase you've managed in RevPAR, GoPAR, ADR, occupancy, implementing a new system, putting in new procedures, processes, etc., etc. You know, increasing the amount of direct bookings from OTAs. You know, and make sure you're putting in specifics. Make sure they're measurable. Make sure you've got the numbers in them, because then people can really understand the impact that you've had. Don't put anything confidential if it is confidential. So you don't have to put exactly what the ADR amount is, but you could say you've increased it by X, or X percentage, or X pounds, because that doesn't really give too much away in terms of confidential information. If you've had more than one job in the same company, then what you want to do is you have the name of employer, you have the overall dates you've worked there, and then what you'll do is you'll have the job title with the dates of the current job and the duties and achievements, and then you'll put the job you did previously and the dates you did that for, and you'll have duties and achievements, so that people can see the overall length of time you've been in that one business, and they can see that you've progressed or you've moved into different roles. That is a smart and easily an easy to read way of showing you've progressed in a company. List your interests at the end of the CV as well. Don't make them too personal. Don't list, I've got 3 children, 10, 12 and 8. You know, I love them. They do this, they do that. You know, this isn't their CV, it's your CV. So you can say you've got a family, you know, whatever, but don't go into too much detail. Interest is about showing who you are and what you do, not about giving your whole life story to somebody. And references, you can put on the CV if you want to. You can just put available on request as well if you wish. So that's a bit of a template on the CV. As I said, will put a link to a blog, and that has got a link in it to this template and things, so you can have that if you want it. I just thought I'd show you a quick CV and run through it really quickly just to help. Unfortunately, people are, I think at the moment, facing some redundancies, and there's a fair bit of people having to interview for their jobs at the moment, I've noticed. So if you need to put a CV together, hopefully this will help. But I'm more than happy to help you. If you want to email me, message me, I can go through this you know, more individually. Last thing I'd say, in fact, not quite last thing, we've just completed our, and this is UK, I'm afraid, to those of you overseas, putting together a global salary guide is a considerable amount of work, and we haven't quite got the data we need to do that yet. It is something we want to do, but it's going to take us a fair bit of time. We've put together a UK salary guide, cross-industry and across the whole country. It's broken down into regions and different sectors, so hotel, airlines, car leasing, etc., all broken down. You can, I can put the link to that as well in the email I send you with this recording, but it is on our website and on LinkedIn, and you can download that salary guide if you want. So look, if some of you unfortunately are being made redundant and needing to apply to jobs, then look, this will give you an idea of the right salaries and stuff. You know, look, I hope that's not the case, but we really tried to get this out quickly so that it can help people in a tough place. But just so you know, that's available if you need it. And lastly, just want to say, look, thank you so much for participating in these webinars. I've really enjoyed doing them. I've been really grateful for the feedback I've had from you, so thank you so much. We can send you out a certificate to say you've done them. one of our thoughts for this is actually to maybe formalize this a bit more, maybe with one of the associations next year, maybe with Hosper or something, and shrink it down into a lot less webinars, but maybe make them a bit longer each, and make it a slightly more formal course. If you'd like a certificate, we can send you a digital copy so you've got it. If you don't worry, it's just something we're happy to do for you if you wish. So I guess, how are we for time? Gone on a bit there, haven't I? But I guess we've merged 2 into 1 this week, so it's a bit longer. And I just want to say thank you so much. Pleasingly, even though I've rabbited on a bit, I've not lost anybody today from the beginning. Everyone's still here. So look, best of luck, guys. I'm here if you need me to any advice, thoughts, or whatever. I really hope the sector, the hospitality market picks up and we come out of this in better shape. I definitely think we'll come out of this as better revenue managers, because I think we'll learn a huge amount, and it will be tough, but we will look back at this in about 5 years' time and think, do you know what, I'm a better revenue manager for it. And that's that's the way we've got to look at this. Be positive. So if I can give any of you any advice, if you want any thoughts or anything after this, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help. I know I've spoken to some of you outside of this. Best of luck. So I suppose I'm a bit sad, really, saying goodbye to everyone. But look, take it easy. Good luck with everything, and I'm around if anyone needs